Hi there, I'm Molly.
And I'm Jamie, and this is our From the Pasture with Hired Hand podcast.
For 15 years now, we've been proudly helping breeders promote hundreds of thousands of pedigree livestock with our easy-to-use animal management-driven website software.
And let's not forget about Hired Hand Live, where over $1 million worth of livestock is sold online each year.
We're excited to bring you market trends, sales data, advice from your fellow breeders, and stories from the ranch.
Our software makes managing your website and your animals a breeze, so you can focus on what you love.
So let us handle your digital chores while you tune in to another episode of From the Pasture with Hired Hand. So thanks so much for joining me today, Ross. For those folks listening and not watching, I am sporting my Chicago Cubs gear here for this special interview. So never played for the Cubs, but I'm a Cubs fan. So
it's a great team.
Well, why don't we start with some icebreakers here? I've labeled them Baseball Meets the Barn. Are you up for it?
It's good.
All right. Favorite ballpark snack versus favorite ranch snack?
So we eat a lot of barbecue. We're in the out at the ranch for lunch. The Lockhart, where we are, is the barbecue capital of Texas. So I eat a lot of barbecue. I really like nachos at stadium as a fan. As a player, it was always tough balance on not eating too much before the game. But there were a couple places. So in Philadelphia, the clubhouse would make us cheesesteaks before the game. And in Arizona, they had these really good tacos. And I feel like in both situations, it was to try to get the visiting team to eat too much and get them off their game. And I think it works sometimes. But anyways, that's now we eat a lot of barbecue.
Bullpen bench or hay bale seat?
Now hay bale. So yeah, bullpen bench was fun about 10 years ago.
All right, curveball or calving season, which is more unpredictable?
Calving season.
What's a ranch chore that you would have put into your training rotation back in the day?
I think a lot of them, a lot of things that we do have benefit. We used to build a lot of fence, and sometimes driving posts in was not very good for my shoulder. But most of the things that we did were good. I mean, just being out, being active, carrying things. It's all kind of just played into general strength, which was important for baseball.
What about your favorite MLB teammate back in the day versus your favorite pasture partner now, animal or human?
So I had a few really good friends, but one who's still playing is Charlie Morton. He's a pitcher. He's with the Orioles this year. And another really good, a couple other ones. Chris Young's the general manager for the Rangers now, and Will Venable is the manager for the White Sox. So all three of them stayed in baseball. And I'd gone to college with Chris and Will. So, but it was so much fun playing with people with different backgrounds and a lot of international players. But anyways, now it's mostly family that I'm with. So my dad and I take care of the cows together. He just turned 80 this year, so he's slowed down some, but he still does a lot. And then we have some young kids that come out and help a lot. And then we see relatives out there quite a bit. We lease land from cousins. And so now it's mostly family, I would say, that I get to spend time with, which has been great.
What about your pregame superstitions versus maybe your pre-sale rituals today?
There were times as a starting pitcher, when you're just pitching once every 5 days, it's really good to have a routine. And it can be more, since you're not doing it every day, it can be a little lengthier, more intricate. But when I was a starting pitcher, I would usually eat salmon the day I pitched for lunch, and then I would get to the field early, and I would read. I just found that was relaxing. That was usually the only day I would read, but I would read mystery books typically on the training room table, and just so I wasn't thinking about the game too much. Now, I guess I don't have anything quite like that. it's finding something with baseball at that level. You really need to, you have the ability to be kind of consistent with what you do. With ranching, you don't have the ability to be consistent with a lot of things. And it's also, I don't know, you should just deal with variability more. In baseball, it's easy. You got a lot of time thinking about it, just sitting there thinking about it. So it's good to have a routine to get your mind off worrying about how the game's going to go the whole day.
So we're not going to catch you in the stands before a sale here reading a mystery book, probably?
Probably not. Probably be chasing kids around while they're helping them. They really like reading their sale programs a lot and following along with the sale.
What's most satisfying, a strikeout or watching one of your top calves hit the ground?
They're both very exciting, I would say. I mean, I would say that's about a tie. Especially a strikeout in a big situation is just, it doesn't get much better than seeing the batter swing and miss or the umpire call strike three. But finding a pretty calf is always great too.
If your herd today had a mascot, what would it be?
I guess a Longhorn. But we had a cow named Lollipop that we used on a lot of our marketing material for a long time. She was black and white speckled with twisty horns. And I had a nice picture of her laying down in the blue bonnet. So she was kind of our mascot. And we still use her and stuff. She died. She was in her late teens and died right after having a calf one year. And luckily we were able to get the calf adopted by another cow. But anyway, she was one that I would say was our mascot for a long time.
Do you prefer boots or cleats?
Boots.
Who would be your dream guest to have out to the ranch for a day?
So when I'm in the baseball mindset, it would definitely be Nolan Ryan. Just growing up watching him pitch and knowing what a great pitcher he was. Also, he's done so much in the Texas community and Austin community afterwards. And then he raises cattle and has done a great job with that. And he bought some Longhorn steers from us about 10 years ago. But he hasn't come out to look at all the cows with us. So I think that would be a lot of fun.
Well, let's jump in here and learn a little bit more about you for folks who, maybe haven't caught on here that you have a special past and have been in Longhorns for a long time. Just go ahead and generally tell me a little bit about yourself.
So I grew up in Austin, and we still live in Austin. My dad grew up on a farm. They had crops and commercial cattle the roads have improved. Now it takes us about 35 minutes to get there every day. But that's where my grandparents were when I was growing up. And so I would go out and visit them on the weekends and a lot of times in the summer, and kind of fell in love with ranching, getting to spend time with them out there. But my dad decided when I was at 13, I was in middle school, that he wanted us to get a few Longhorns. And at the time, I wasn't that excited about it. I really liked riding horses. That was usually what we would do when we go out on the weekends. And I felt like the Longhorns would be a distraction, and didn't understand why we didn't want to just have horses. But after we went and looked at a couple places to look at about buying some, I quickly fell in love with them. So we got Longhorns in 1995 when I was 13. So now we've had them 30 years and have grown the herd. So that's always been a part of my life. But after college, I really liked sports too growing up. And I played baseball and basketball in high school. Thought about playing both in college, but decided that I would just do baseball. I preferred basketball, but I had more upside in baseball and had a chance to play after college. And so I was drafted after college, and I played for 14 seasons between the majors and the minors, and then 1 year in Japan. And through that time, I was helping my dad raise the Longhorns. I would do a lot of our marketing. He would take care of the cows because I was traveling. When I was home in the off season, I would help him. But I always had an eye towards wanting to be a full-time rancher if possible, when I finished playing baseball, and so I retired from baseball about 7 years ago, and have been doing the Longhorns full time now. And so, Dad and I still take care of them together, and then our kids they're still young, but show a lot of interest in it, and come out, and they can be helpful with certain things, even though the oldest two are 6 and 8. But they found things to do that are really helpful, and then also things where they're able to learn and try things out for themselves. So now I'm Longhorn rancher, and I coach kids in sports.
So you touched a little bit on about how when you were on your journey with the MLB, you still found time to, visit the ranch and help your dad and stuff. Do you feel like there was anything else you haven't mentioned from that journey that maybe led you to where you're at today with the herd?
Well, so a few other things I would do while I was playing baseball, I was able to see a lot of other of Longhorn breeders and their programs throughout the country. And I enjoyed that and learned a lot from it, and it also makes it more fun to get to experience it with other people, see what they're doing, see what they care about. You learn things, but just the camaraderie of it is nice. So that certainly continued to build my passion for it while I was playing. And then I also had an internship at the Department of Agriculture in Washington, D.C., and was mainly focused on animal traceability. They were wanting to roll out a fairly intense program of animal traceability. And around the time I was there, they decided to scale back and give the states more responsibility, which I thought was something that I thought made more sense. But generally, I don't have much interest in politics and governance, but that was a good experience. I met a lot of really nice and interesting people doing that too.
So you mentioned that that was your dad, Curtis, that kind of got you started with the Longhorns. Do you know what made him choose Longhorns for your ranch?
So our family's been in agriculture in Texas for almost 200 years now. The first ones came over, they were German. First ones came over in 1831. The first Ohlendorf came over in 1845. But some of them had other businesses, but everybody had kind of an agricultural background and base. Dad grew up on a farm, and he had a cousin who had Longhorns. It would have been probably in the 70s. And Dad was out there, and there was a newborn calf, and it was just super colorful. And from that time, he was excited about Longhorns, even though he went to Texas A&M, and they had a big rivalry with the Texas Longhorns. But there was something about the color, the uncertainty of what color the calf's going to be, the enjoyment of figuring that out that really sparked his interest. And now he's been he was working at UT. I mean, he really put in a lot of time to the herd as I guess he was 50 when we got our first Longhorns. He's 80 now. And we owned some land, but we leased a lot of land. And usually when we lease new places, we had to put in a lot of work on the fencing. And he worked really hard to get us to the point where we've brought our herd to what it is today.
Well, I think a lot of our listeners, starting your involvement back in 1995, that's a long time, right? That makes you kind of an old timer in the breed. Not that you're old in age, just old in Longhorns. But I don't know how many folks will recognize this name. But you all bought your first few through the legendary Bob Coffey, who owned Travis Peak Ranch. How did that relationship and kind of that early breeding direction and philosophy shape your herd? Because if people do their research, he's quite the legend with genetics.
Yes. And I think, so we met him in 1995. I think he was 1999 TLBA Breeder of the Year. Anyway, he had a good reputation when it came to raising cattle that people liked. But one thing that he really helped me with was marketing. So he was an architect, and he would he had these big sheets of paper that they would use for their drawings, and with little squares on it, and he would make these price lists that would have a picture of the cow, pedigree, a little bit of information. Not nearly as much as we put on websites today, but it was, prior to websites, it was a good way to get people information in a way that was fun to take in and absorb, where they could look at a lot of different options that he had for sale and take their time doing it. He'd also have people out to pick them out in person a lot, but he, when websites weren't an option, he did a great job with his marketing and making the sales process or the buying process fun for his customers. But he'd been doing it a long time, so he had a lot of advice about Longhorns and how to take care of them. And we met him. He was really good friends with one of my aunt's boyfriend at the time. And Mr. Coffey were really good friends. And so that's how we met him. It was the second place we went to, but he was just right away. We hit it off so well. And one thing that I have noticed, and as time has gone on and looking back, a lot of people who raised Longhorns in our area started with Mr. Coffey and stayed really involved with Longhorns and got a lot of enjoyment out of them. And I think a lot of that was the cattle that he had, but also the experience that they would have in buying from him. He made it so enjoyable, made you listen to what it was that we were interested in doing with the cattle, and helped us find the best fits in his herd, which is something we try to do for customers today.
Yeah, I feel like we're foreshadowing a few of my questions coming up here, because I know that you believe very strongly in, not just selling an animal and disappearing, or, letting folks figure it out. You do a great job with that relationship building. So we'll talk more about that coming up. But one thing, and if I think I'm remembering correctly, it's kind of like the old sale catalogs as well. Those price sheets that Mr. Coffey made. The funny thing to me was always that they were in black and white. So he'd have these beautiful, flashy colored Longhorns, but his little price sheets were always black and white. So you had to try to read and figure out what color everything was.
That's right. Yes. Yeah.
Did anything special lead you to choose Lockhart, Texas as the home of Rocking O Longhorns?
That's just where our family had been and had land. And it worked out really well we're very fortunate in that our family came to that area in the 1870s, a lot of them, and a lot of them came from closer to Houston. And so they spread out and all had, of course, land was so much cheaper then. Even you could make a return on it with agriculture. So a lot of them own land, and then at this point, a lot of them have kept their land but aren't using it for agriculture. And so we've had opportunity to lease land from cousins. We couldn't do what we're doing anywhere else. There's just so many advantages to the area for us. And then we live in Austin, and it's really we're lucky that the commute is not longer than it is, because Dad and I are out there pretty much every day. So most of what we consider our headquarters, it takes us about 35 minutes to get to.
And who came up with the Rocking O name? Was that you or your dad or both?
So I know I came up with the brand, which is pretty simple to know what a Rocking O would look like, because my dad is crediting me with that. In terms of the name, I think I might have, but I'm not sure. Of course, O is for Ohlendorf. And I don't know why we chose Rocking. I'm guessing that I used to really like watching Westerns. I'm guessing there was a Western with a Rocking something or other brand. But I know Dad credits me with in 7th grade and maybe an art class or something coming up with the brand, which I don't know how else it would look. But anyways, that's it. It came up pretty easily for us. The one thing we used to, so I have a younger brother, Chad, who isn't that involved with the cattle now, but when we started and we were both at home, he was. Now he lives in Dallas and does other things in finance and does other things. But so dad's Curtis, my first name is Curtis, and then Chad, we all started with a C. So we used to put CO in front of all of our cattle. And then I think about 12 years ago, Dad felt like we should change it to RO. And I'm glad we did, because now our cattle are more programs, and it's nice to have the RO. But there's still a few CO cows out there that Chris Hesse has a couple, and there are a few others that we're really proud to have raised.
Well, let's talk a little bit about your breeding philosophy, and I think we'll talk about some of those legendary CO cattle coming up too. So your herd, if folks look, it kind of traces back to bulls like Brawl and Capone, and now includes daughters and granddaughters from some of the more popular bulls of today. How do you maintain consistency across generations while still, kind of pushing forward with the breed?
So the thing that I guess has constantly been added onto in our herd is horn length. And there's so many things you can breed for in the Longhorn breed. There's so much variety. And we've always valued horns, but we like a lot of other traits too. So when we started off, we really wanted big cattle. So the bull Brawl that you mentioned, he was the son of Overwhelmer. Mr. Coffee had raised him. He was out of his best cow, India. He gave us really big cows, really nice color patterns. They're really good moms. They're really big frame. Really good moms. As time went on from there, we tried to add horn. We've kind of come and gone with what we focused on. We still like size for a long time. Now it's less important to us. We used a couple solid red bulls, Capone being one of them, that had really good horn for their time. And what we found was it was hard to sell solid red cattle. And so, there's some great solid red cattle. A lot of people like them, but most of our customers wanted more color. So, solid red, solid white bulls, we tended to stay away from, but we've had really good success with some. We have Casanova's Magnum's a bull we've used for, I think, 6 years now. And he produces a lot of white calves. But not every bull is going to be perfect. So that we try to, but Magnum produces some super flashy calves too. We try to keep color in the herd and then incrementally add horn without sacrificing conformation. So we've given up size, but we still try to not have flaws with conformation or with mothering ability, fertility, things like that. No cow's going to be perfect, but those are things that we think about. One thing, when we had really big framed cows, we also liked really big udders, and we realized that we were running into the problems with the bags as they got older, the teats getting big, things like that. So instead of looking for big udders, we want udders that look like they won't have any problems, and then fat growthy calves inside. So that's kind of how we evaluate the mothers, is not so much how does the udder look size wise, but how does the calf look, and does the udder look like it's fault free, that it doesn't have any problems. Anyway, those are some of the things that we focus on. I think a lot of people care about similar things. Some people prioritize other things more than we do. I think color is one of the things that, just when I look at other websites and other herds, I think we tend to prioritize color more than a lot of people. Probably prioritize tip to tip horn less. So my favorite horn shape is a high handlebar horn. So the higher horns don't bother me. That some people really want to stay away from them. But we're also thinking about what our customers are going to want, and variety and color is something that consistently most of our customers that are looking to start a herd are interested in it.
Will you describe your program as pretty and productive? What does that mean? Like if you talk more about some of your selection traits or making your breeding decisions, how does that come into play?
So with pretty, a lot of pretty can be color, but there are a lot of other things that go into it. There are certain face structures that I think people tend to be more drawn to. With the cow's more feminine face, is going to tend to be more popular. Black markings, black nose, mealy mouth, black around the eyes, things like that. That just add some beauty to the face. That some people really judge a cow's beauty on the face a lot. Conformational defects can take away from the eye appeal of cattle and possibly the function too. But the color is a big thing. Horn shape as much as length on older cattle, I think, adds a lot to beauty. But it is all, I mean, being pretty is subjective. But there are certain things that most people are drawn to. And then with productive, so we have want our cattle to do well on an almost all grass diet. We don't supplement much. It depends on how much rain we get, but we try to have the pastures work throughout most of the year, and we're lucky that our winters aren't that bad, so the cattle can still graze most of the winter. But we want them to do well on grass, and we want them to raise nice big calves consistently. So we want them to calve every 10 and a half to 12 and a half months. They won't all do that every year, but generally we have good success with them breeding back efficiently. But I mean, I think these are things that a lot of people like, but those, I guess I think about the cow itself. I think a little bit less about the genetics and more about what that actual cow looks like. When they're young, genetics are more important because you don't know what they're going to look like or what they're going to do. But, and genetics are always important. There's just so much variety even amongst full siblings too.
Do you think that focusing on beauty in cattle ever gets a little underestimated in the Longhorn industry?
I guess it depends who you ask. I mean, our customers, most of our customers they want a fun way to get their ag exemption, but they aren't all in states that have ag exemptions, or even countries. And we've sold to a number of countries too, but usually they just want to enjoy being around the cows, and beauty is a big part of that. When you get into competitions and have more, what I would consider more competitive breeders or Longhorn owners, whether it's horn measuring or futurities, then there are other things. And I think with sales, popularity of genetics is really important, especially on younger animals. And people also want to trust in the program that is selling the animal and that they've seen other people pay a lot of money from those programs. That's important too. And that just having a good reputation. So there are a lot of things other than the beauty of the cattle. For what we do, most of our customers just want them to be pretty. They also, I know our pretty and productive is our slogan, but disposition is really important too. I mean, a lot of people that, and we don't hand feed the cows, but we want them to be calm. We want them to come when we call. So that's another thing that matters a lot. But I guess back to your question about if it's undervalued, it just, I think I hear people talk about a lot of other traits. So I don't know if it's something that's hard to quantify, and that that alone makes it feel like not enough, I think, to certain people. And that's fine. And there are a lot of different things to care about within Longhorns, and deciding which ones you like more than others.
So I'm sure you studied a lot of game footage and performance metrics while you were in baseball. Did any of that same analytical mindset carry over into how you decided to track bloodlines or build your program over the years?
Um, well, so when I think about it, one thing that I think about is, and this goes back a little bit to just appreciating beauty versus things you can quantify more. So I was a pitcher, and a lot of evaluating pitchers is judging how hard they throw, and part of that is it's easy to measure and it's easy to communicate to other people. It's easy to rank people based on how hard they throw, and then defend your rankings because it's black and white. It's if you throw 96, that's better than 93. But there are a lot of other things that go into making a good pitcher. But radar gun readings, there's something appealing about being able to quantify something like that. But I understood in watching people pitch that sometimes you would make bad decisions based on the radar gun readings, or suboptimal decisions with who to draft or who to sign, things like that. And I've just noticed with Longhorns, there's a similar draw to horn measurement length because you can quantify it. It's easy to rank cattle. It's easy to communicate it, to justify your decisions. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with it, but it's just something that I have tried not to. Generally, if you can quantify something, it's easy to overvalue it. And I've just tried to be aware of that as I think about things, because I like longer horns too, but I try to make sure I'm thoughtful of the fact that I like other stuff as well, and it's fine to like things that can't be quantified. And I feel like I've seen that both with pitching and with Longhorns. So I always did well in math, but I don't like applying it in all areas, I guess. So I feel like there's a time and place. I feel like a lot of Longhorns is more of an art than a science. There's definitely components of both. We're not that analytical day to day on what we do. I think there's a time and a place for it, but we aren't overly analytical. I think, I don't know. I guess I'm used to thinking the way I do, but I don't consider it all that analytical.
And now a word from our sponsors.
Do you sometimes feel like you're the only one who doesn't have it all figured out? Rural life can be isolating, but it doesn't have to be.
Welcome to Ag's Most Okayest Farm Girls, the podcast for women who are craving connection, laughter, solidarity, camaraderie, and just overall encouragement in your everyday life and dreams.
Each week, your hosts, Annalise, that's me, and Courtney will cover topics such as farm life, mom life, making money online, side hustles, hobbies, sharing on social media, jobs off the farm, and so much more.
Us rural gals need to stick together, so saddle up for some fun, real, and unsolicited advice and stories from our everyday farm lives.
Grab a drink, we're Ag's Most Okayest Farm Girls, and we're here to help. Listen wherever you find podcasts.
Are you a new Longhorn breeder eager to educate yourself on market trends and sale prices? Stay in the loop with our text messages. Get the latest updates, events, and insider tips on all things Longhorns delivered straight to your phone.
Stay informed by texting website to 888-700-8131, then reply with Longhorns. That's website to 888-700-8131. Sign up today and take your breeding program to the next level.
So in 2009, you threw an immaculate inning. So 3 strikeouts on 9 pitches. So that kind of precision is pretty rare in baseball for any fans that follow. In your Longhorn program, have you had any perfect inning moments where everything kind of just clicked? Maybe it be a breeding decision or a calf that turned out exactly how you hoped?
So a lot of what we do is very long term, and you don't have, so with throwing immaculate inning or getting strikeouts, it all happens very quick. You feel the reward right away. So much of what we do is longer term, whether it's the 12-ish months of a calving season or the 30 years from planting trees. Like it's just, most things are really long term. But something that consistently feels really good is when we make sales to customers where we've communicated with them and tried to be thoughtful about what it is that they are looking for and what it is that we have that might work well for them. And we find that right fit and they're excited about their purchase. And it just feels like it's worked really well on both sides. That's something selling predominantly private treaty that we've had the fortune to be able to do with some regularity. And so those interactions are the times when Dad and I feel really good about things. It feels like a great day or great start to a relationship. So that making the sales that feel like win-win are I guess probably the thing I think about being most similar.
Well, you've kind of had a theme of a lot of your answers relate back to what your customers want. So let's talk a little bit more about your customers.
Mm-hmm.
What I think on your website, maybe I read that you, or maybe it was when we were speaking, you kind of said you felt like you had two different groups of customers. What are those different groups looking for?
So a lot of people come to. So we don't have the largest herd, but we have one of our strengths is that we have larger scale and can sell a group of cattle, whether it's 3, 5, 10, or more than that, where people have options to pick from. And a lot of times that can lead to a good buying experience. So there are other places they can go to, but a strength that we tend to have is being able to offer people as they're starting off, if they want to go to one place or get quite a few from one place, quite a few options, and also a lot of information about each of the cattle. So we have a lot of new customers, and they're new as in they're new to Longhorns. They might have room for 2 Longhorns, but a lot of times they have room for 3 to 8, 3 to 10 or more. And a lot of times they're looking for a fun way to get their ag exemption. They might want to raise calves, they might not, but they want pretty cows that are easy to be around. Between the selection of cattle we have, the advice we can give them after the sale, I feel like we have a lot to offer that group. And usually they're buying multiple cattle. And then another group would be people who are more established in the breed. They typically are only looking to add 1, maybe 2 animals at a time. A lot of times they're going to be buying a bull. And we have repeat customers that come every 2 to 3 years and buy a bull from us. So the established breeders are usually a little more selective in that they know what specifically they're looking to add to their herd, and often they're buying 1 at a time. They might be more comfortable at a higher price point, just depending on who it is. That second group, they have the volume that we have and the experience that we have might benefit them less than the first group, but I think we have good fits for people who've been doing it a long time as well.
You mentioned volume. How many head are you all running now?
So we've been downsizing, but in the hundreds. We've been in the high hundreds. About a year ago, we've been cutting back some. Plenty to keep us busy, I guess. So it's just me and my dad who are taking care of them. We'll hire people to help with projects, building new fence, helping spray mesquites, things like that. But when it comes to working with the cattle, it's just been me and my dad. And Dad's getting older, so it's mainly me. So we have, even after cutting back, we'll have a few hundred calves a year. It's probably where we'll end up.
Well, let's kind of break down these 2 different groups. So I have some questions that are kind of related to each of them. Regarding the folks who are just getting started and maybe they're looking for what has kind of been labeled a starter herd, how do you, what goes into building those groups of cattle for folks, and how do you approach making sure that the grouping they're buying is going to complement each other and meet their needs?
So different people want to start different ways. Some people like to buy heifers and watch them grow up around them. And some people want the mature cows that already have their horn shape and going to have more eye appeal at the beginning. I tend to, when working with our own herds, we have a number of different herds. I like to group cattle similar in age, often similar in body type and body size, similar in horn length, but different in color. So I like to where color is the thing that really separates the cattle. It makes them all look unique, but in terms of body size and conformation, particularly body size and age, there's some close to uniformity. I just think that to me, there's more eye appeal to that group. I think the cattle tend to do better than having a heifer or two heifers with two mature cows. I think the cattle like being with ones that are similar in size, but I think from an eye appeal standpoint, it's nice. But I like having variety in color, and a lot of our customers do too. I mean, that seems to be a fun thing, is picking out different colors. So I just think about what I would like in a group, and we also customize packages for people. But a lot of times the big decisions that they need to make are whether they want to go with older ones or younger ones, what price point, and how many. If I have that information, I can make suggestions and let them someone to know just what we would do, and someone to have, they're going to pick 5, they want to see 10, and then they want to pick them. It's just different people like to pick in different ways, but we try to be flexible and gear it towards what they want.
What advice do you give to the first-time buyers, especially those who are interested in Longhorns for more fun or an egg exemption or pasture art?
So the biggest mistake people tend to make is to overgraze the land. Most of so within Texas, the counties set the ag exemption requirements. Most are pretty conservative in that they don't require you to overgraze the land to get the exemption. The exception to that would be on smaller properties. So most counties will have a minimum of some counties anyways, will have a minimum of, say, 3. If you have 10 acres, it might be that 3 will overgraze the property. Bastrop County, which is close to us, went up to 7 a few years ago as the minimum. And so that's really hard. If you have a smaller place, which a lot of people do, that can be taxing on it. But if you have a larger place, usually the county's going to be conservative with what they require. We usually encourage people to start at that number. If they feel like they can add more later, it might be more fun to add once they've already had Longhorns and know a little bit more about what they would like to add to the herd. But the main thing is just not buying too many to start.
Well, we talked a little bit before about Bob Coffey and some of the marketing lessons and advice he shared with you. And one of those was being available before and after the sale. So how important do you think that is? How important do you think ongoing support is to, breeders that you're selling to?
So for us, it's something we take a lot of pride in and enjoy. And a lot of our customers haven't raised Longhorns before, and oftentimes haven't raised cattle before. So they're just things that might feel overwhelming to them, or just they might feel a lot of uncertainty that we don't necessarily know the answer, but we know how we would handle something. And just being able to have a quick conversation like that can be helpful to them. And it's something we're happy to do and kind of take some responsibility to do. I mean, we try to raise really nice cows that people will like, but we ask a premium for our cattle over what you would pay if you went to the sale barn to buy cows. And part of that is that we're providing service with the cattle and with the sale. But we don't feel burdened by it. We like to do it. We want people to be happy with what they've gotten.
Have you found that leads to a lot of repeat customers?
It can. The thing we do have a lot of repeat customers, but a lot of times once people establish their herd, they start having calves, they're not thinking about buying so much as selling. And so we give them thoughts on that too, as we have them. But a lot of times they'll come to buy a new bull after a few years, and maybe there's a cow they've seen on our website they really like. So a lot of our repeat customers are just, so we have some customers that buy one or two every year, and as they make sales of their own, they're buying ones on our website that they really like. So we hope it does, but if it doesn't, that's fine too.
In your 30 plus years of being in the breed, do you feel like it kind of goes in waves of shifts in who's buying, whether it be casual or veteran breeders? Does it kind of just go in different waves, or is it pretty consistent with both groups?
So I'll just say on the last few years, well, I think that mix has been somewhat consistent, but for us, as we've done it longer, more people know us and know of our cattle. We have gotten more veteran breeders to cows or buy from us than we did starting off. Certainly, it can be a challenge starting off figuring out how to market your cows, and usually you have a couple disadvantages. One is you don't often have experience and expertise to provide to the customer. But often, too, you don't have as much scale. There are a lot of advantages with scale, and both as an operator in keeping your costs down, but too in what you can provide to your customers. So we have, as time's gone on, we have had just more customers generally, but certainly more veteran breeders that have been interested in our cattle. So one thing that I noticed, and it could just be us, but we used to sell a lot of heifers. People would want to watch the cattle grow up. Around COVID, I think everybody saw a bump in sales. Just there were a lot of people decided now it's time to get Longhorns if they'd been thinking about it, or they have more time to look, or they're spending more time at the ranch, whatever it was. Our experience during that was our sales really jumped, but it was people were tending to want to buy cows that already had the really pretty look versus buying heifers and watching them grow. It's been back to a little bit more even mix, I would say, in the last year, but I don't think that our customers are looking at heifers as much as they were 6-7 years ago. And that could just be us, but that's just something I noticed, and I think it just goes to long-term versus short-term goals and in what you're wanting to get out of it. If you want to have people out to your ranch to see impressive Longhorns, you're going to want to get older ones, and I think that seems to be in our customer group a little bit more of what's happened in the last 5 or 6 years.
Do you feel like there was a turning point over the past few years probably more further in the past than the past few years, but a turning point when Rocking O went from kind of building to being a true leader in the breed?
I feel like things have just been gradual. I'd say the time that, so in 2020, we were named TLBA Breeder of the Year, and that was certainly a highlight for us. And we don't show our cattle. Some of our customers do, and we've had some customers do very well with some of our cows in the past, especially mature cows. There was a stretch of several years where 2 different cows we raised were going back and forth at the TLBA World Show between mature and reserve mature grand champion. But a lot of times to get Breeder of the Year, you show a lot, or you're at the big sales a lot. So anyways, and we don't really do either of those things. So that was a big honor. I think it helped that it was at the beginning of COVID and people weren't going to shows. But I guess that was a really cool thing for us. So I don't know. I think there's a lot of different niches to fill within the breed, a lot of different things you can choose to focus on. Some are more visible in public than others. But we really like raising Longhorns and interacting with our customers are kind of the things we really enjoy. But it's nice when a lot of people know who you are too.
We mentioned a few, champions in the show ring. I'm going to ask you about one of these cattle that carried the CO name before you switched. So CO Pinta, she brought some major dollars in the sale ring. Tell me a little bit about that story, and then maybe just some of the trends you've seen change the most since the 90s, from being in the breed so long.
So we had a bull. You'd mentioned Capone earlier. We bought Capone, and he was one of the solid red bulls that we had used. We bought him as an 18-month-old from Daryl Dickinson, which we bought a lot of bulls from the Dickinsons over the years. I think we have had 9 or so that we either bought directly from them, or there was one named Chart Iron that they raised that we bought from someone else. But I think the other 8 we bought directly from them. And Capone was the first one. And so we used him for a few years, and we were getting a lot of solid red calves, and so decided to offer for sale. And the Burtons Bill and Sue Burton bought him from us. And when they came to look at him, we had this heifer, CO Pinta, that we sold it. We had a price at $1,700, and they bought. And then they had her for about a year. They marketed her well. Her horns just grew straight out. And they ended up taking her to one of the, I think it was the legacy sale, and she sold for $49,000. So anyway, so we were really happy for them that they were able to do so well, and it was really great for us to have her do so well. But yeah, that's, I guess, the story on her. And then we really enjoyed getting to know the Burtons a little bit over the years, and we went and toured their ranch. We were there all day and didn't get to see all of it, but in 2015, and they had just mentioned how grateful they were that we sold them Capone and Pinta, because Capone, it did a good job for their herd too. And anyway, so they said that they, and just on their own, because Pinta had done so well for them, to let us know if there was something that they could do to return the favor. So, which was really nice of them to say. But we, anyways, it's sometimes you're going to sell some that other people sell for less, and sometimes more. It reflects best on us and makes us feel best if they sell for more later on, especially she was one of the high selling heifers at the time. Yeah.
That's awesome. Who would you say is the prettiest cow that you've ever owned? And was she fun, like your motto says?
That's right. Yeah, prettier cows are more fun. So probably Lollipop, that I mentioned a little bit earlier. That so I really like flashy black and white cattle, and she had a lot of spots and roan. She had super twisty horns. Her horns weren't that long. She was also, I particularly liked her because she calved every 10.5 months and raised super fat calves. So anyway, there was a lot to like about her. She was probably up there. We have a cow. So our 6-year-old asks me all the time, whether it's just all our cows or in a certain pasture, which one my favorite is. And he'll want me to rank my top 5. It's like multiple times a day. So he and I both right now, our favorites change a lot, but he and I both really like a cow we have named KDK, Cash's Cream Puff. We call her Cream Puff. And she also, like Lollipop, doesn't have super long horns, but it's pretty shape. But she just has this beautiful color, nice full body, raises really good calves. I guess my answer on which one is my favorite now changes over time, but Lollipop's one that is always in the back of my mind as having been one of my favorites that we have.
Well, one thing I often wonder when I'm scrolling Instagram and come across one of your posts is, can you make any cow look good? Because all of your pictures are they're perfect. They're standing correct. The scenery is perfect. So tell me a little bit about that process.
Yeah. Well, thanks for saying that. So One thing I try to only take pictures at good times of the day, so where the sun is at my back but not too low. So it's kind of like, it depends on the time of year, but kind of mid morning, later afternoon are usually the times. I try to do it in pastures where there's a nice background. So ideally they're on kind of hilltop. We don't always have that luxury. Some of our pastures have a lot of mesquite still. So we try to do it where there's at least a pretty section of each pasture, where we can get pictures. Sometimes there are trees in the background, which is fine, but it's ideally they're on a hilltop. But and then there are times of the year where like late spring through the fall are for us good times to take pictures. The cattle are slicker. Since our cattle are mostly on grass, their body weight fluctuates throughout the year. There are times where there's great grass, times where there's not as good. So to us, they always look healthy, but we like taking pictures when they're on the fatter side with slicked off coats. And then just taking a lot of them, having a camera that'll take a bunch in a row so you can pick the one where their ears are in the right spot, their mouth's closed, they're looking at you. Some days it just seems like you can go out there, if there are 15 heifers, I can get a good picture of all of them. And some days I can't get a picture of any of them. So a lot of it's repetition and practice, but also trying a lot so that you'll get those days where you get a bunch of good ones. But it's something I've done for a long time now. And squatting down is important too. Things just look better.
Is there any tricks you use to get them to look at you, or are they pretty nosy when you're out there already?
So that's something that varies a lot day to day too. I usually will kind of whistle and I'll hold my hand above my head and snap my fingers. Or if I have a hat, I'll wave my hat. That works sometimes. Sometimes I'm like squatting and jumping up and down while I'm squatting and try to get them to look. And some days nothing seems to work, but I'm usually by myself. I know some people will have someone else wave something behind them. If my dad is there with me, he'll usually be sitting in the mule watching, and I'll ask him to drive straight behind me. So if they look at the mule, it's essentially the same as them looking at me. So sometimes that helps, but some gals just tend to be really stubborn, especially when they have plenty of good grass to eat.
Well, you mentioned, you try to have a good pasture setting. And I know in the 30 years you've been ranching, you've worked a lot on tree removal, adding trees. Tell me a little bit about just your sustainability and land stewardship practices.
So I guess the biggest thing we have to discipline ourselves on is not overgrazing. And that can really be a challenge in years where we don't get much rain, because our rainfall fluctuates so much. But that's one of the things that's constantly on our mind. Then there are bigger projects and a lot of it has to do with trees, whether we're moving trees we don't want, or I have several times planted large groups of oak trees and put in irrigation. And that's very long term. I mean, that's me. I'm hoping my kids, because these are younger trees I'm planting, hoping my kids get to enjoy the aesthetics of the tree. The cattle get to enjoy the shade over time. But mesquite trees are something, and there are a few other, we have mesquite trees are the most prevalent. We have weesatch trees, which are another thorny tree like mesquites, and then ratama, which is also thorny. It's more tall and skinny, but we have those three trees, and our properties are spread out. So all of them seem to have mesquites, and then weesatch seems to be coming into the area more, but it and ratama can grow pretty quickly. So I've been spending a lot of time the last probably 4 summers on the skid steer in the summer, and I'll cut the tree, and then we have a tree shear with a spray kit, so I can cut it and spray it right away. And so you don't have to use much spraying as long as you get the whole base. It's really good about killing the trees. So that is a long term. I mean, that's something where I'll work for 3 months and then finally clear a field, and everything looks so much different. the grass will grow better in the future. The cattle won't have to be walking through the thick mesquites. That's something I've really enjoyed doing a lot. And so we've had the fortune of being able to buy some land over the last few years and convert it from farmland to pasture, or from brush with real thick mesquites to pasture. And those are things that have been really rewarding. I have learned a lot in those processes, and it feels, now that I've done it, I just feel like there are just other things that I can do. I didn't realize that I could, I guess, kind of reclaim some land to nice grass. And having gone through, we've had other farmers in the area help us prepare the soil after we've cleared it and things to plant grass. So we've had a lot of help from other people, but Dad and I have done a lot too. And it's a lot of especially with our family having been in agriculture in that area for a long time, having been handed down land through generations, the land is a big part of our enjoyment, is admiring the beauty of the land and trying to keep it pretty and keep it productive for the cattle.
And now let's hear from our advertisers.
From the Pasture by Hired Hand is presented by R3 Hilltop Ranch. Located in Chilton, Texas, R3 Hilltop Ranch has been breeding registered Texas Longhorns since 2006. What began as 3 heifers has grown into our current herd, which you can explore on our website at r3hilltop.com. We're passionate about loud colors, longhorns, and docile temperaments, but it's the easy-keeping, low-maintenance traits of Texas Longhorns that initially attracted us and continue to drive our herd growth. In addition to livestock, we proudly offer certified Longhorn beef products. Visit r3hilltop.com/beef to learn more. Thank you for listening, and enjoy exploring our ranch online at r3hilltop.com.
Imagine updating your website and managing your animals at the same time without needing tech experience. With Hired Hand software, it's that easy. Our user-friendly platform is designed specifically for breeders, allowing you to keep your site fresh and your animal records up to date in just a few clicks.
Let us simplify your digital chores while you focus on what you do best. Visit hiredhandsoftware.com and see just how easy it can be.
Looking for top quality Longhorns and a taste of true Texas spirit? Look no further than Cantera Cattle Company. Our passion for Longhorns shines at Old Gringo Ranch, where tradition meets excellence. Visit us online at CanteraCattleCompany.com and follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok for the latest updates and ranch life fun. Ready to experience it yourself? Schedule your visit by emailing canteracattle@gmail.com. Remember, God is great, Longhorns are good, and life is crazy.
Well, let's switch gears a little bit here and talk about the Longhorn community. So we've already talked a little bit about how Bob Coffey was a great mentor to you. On your website, you mentioned that you were fortunate enough to get to know folks with the Jones Ranch and the Buckhorn Cattle Company. What are some other things that we haven't talked about that you've learned from these programs or these people that still help guide your decisions today?
So one thing that I think is kind of in line with some of what I've talked about is would be something I remember the Joneses telling us. So Ron and Joe Jones raised Longhorns for a long time. I don't know if it was 40 or 50 years. I would think it was 50 or maybe a little more. And they had the bull gunmen who really added a lot of horn to a lot of cattle. And so my impression of their herd was always that they had industry leading horn, and that horn was a big focus of theirs. But one time when Dad and I were up there picking up some cattle we had bought, we got snowed in, and we ended up spending probably a day and a half with them. And they talked about how they really like black noses with the mealy mouth, which is something that we really like too. And it kind of clicked for me that even people who are elite in breeding for horn can still prioritize other things. And just the kind of simple beauty of the cattle. And they're something that appeals to them personally. And so anyways, that was an interesting thing for me. But we were really lucky a lot of the these mentors were more similar to dad in age, but he was, I guess, closer friends with them, and but I got to listen a lot. And they were all really nice to me. So Buck and Sharon Adams raised Longhorns for about the same length of time as we have, and they just decided it was time for them to sell. And we had gone to visit them in 2015, and then I think it was 2021. Buck called me and said that they were going to sell their herd and asked if I would buy most of it. And so we talked for a while. He sent me all the information on them. We went up and looked at them, and they hosted us at their house. We had a great time visiting with them. Cattle really fit what we like really well. And so that was such a special thing for us to both have the opportunity to, I guess, in relationship with them and get to spend that time with them, but then to kind of take on so many cows into our herd that would be so impactful for us continuing to breed for what we like. And he did it too at a price, because he knows this is what we're doing full time. It was a price where he wanted to, really help us out. We were helping him out, and then we were continuing his breeding program that he worked so hard on. It was just a great thing for both of us. The other program that we've made a big difference for us was Lazy L Longhorns. They were in Lockhart, really close to us. So I'd go look at their cows a lot. And they, over time, over about a 6-year period, kind of sold us our pick of their cows. And that was one thing. It started off small. We made one purchase off their coal list. Kind of had that interaction where in their coal list was still really good cows, but where we had made one purchase from them, figured out cattle and prices that would work well for both of us, and then continued to get to know each other, get to know their herd. When they were ready to sell some more, they came to us, and in the end, it worked out well for both of us, where we ended up buying kind of our pick of their cows, which made a big difference in our herd too. So we really benefited from other breeding programs too, but those are 3 of the big ones that in more recent years have really helped shape our herd and breeding program.
What's your favorite Longhorn event or sale of the past?
So one that I really liked that was kind of smaller was the Blue Ridge sale, which John Marshall put on. And it was at his ranch in Llano, and sometimes it would storm there when we were most of the time. But otherwise, the weather was so nice. It was such a friendly, kind of laid back environment, and the food was amazing. He really went over the top with the food, and that's one that I really enjoyed. And our kids were pretty young the last couple sales he had, and they could run around, and it was just really nice, fun environment.
They brought in chuck wagons, right? Am I thinking of the right?
Yeah,
the food?
That's right. They did, and they had steak, they had fried shrimp, it was just all kinds of stuff. And then breakfast, I know they cooked coffee at the chuck wagon. And I don't remember what the breakfast food was, but I'm sure it was good.
I think it was like biscuits and gravy, and I think it was like.
I bet it was.
Yeah.
But he really went over the top to just for everyone to have a good time. And we also bought several cows there, several heifers, because it was a sale where prices weren't real high. Like, it was one of the ones where prices weren't real high, and but Brian Brett was really good friends with him. The 2 of them put in cattle that they really liked. And we bought cows from both of them that we have owned for multiple years now, and really, really been happy with. think most of them we bought as heifers, but as they've grown up, they've just turned into great cows.
Do you have a favorite sale or event of the present?
Most of the ones we've gotten to the last couple of years have been in Lockhart. So I really haven't been to that many. We always, the Will Rogers Center, the ones that are there, I really like. I think it's a nice place to look at the cows, and then the sale arena is so nice. The stockyard sale is we've gone there, and that's a neat environment. It's much different than the Blue Ridge sale, but I think it fits the quality of cows really well. And it's the cattle there are so nice. There's so many that I haven't been to. I've heard really good things about the Wisconsin sale, and so we usually try to take a road trip in the summer, and that sounds like a really nice place to go. So I'm hoping in the next few years we'll make our way up there. And then the Scott Picker's Oregon sale, I've heard great things about, but we're usually going to something that's where we can go there and back home that night with having the little kids.
How has the Longhorn community helped you grow as a breeder?
Some of it would be seeing other people's kind of best practices and how they do things. But the biggest thing would be just the options that are out there for bringing primarily bulls, but also cows into our herd to kind of add on to traits we like without breeding too closely genetically. And there's so many good programs out there that have cattle that have a lot of appeal to us. I think that's one of the biggest things is just giving us opportunities to bring in new genetics, but the camaraderie and getting to know people makes it more fun. And when we have people out or we go to someone else's place, it just, the things we talk about then while we're visiting with them make it more exciting the next few days or weeks to look at our cows and think about them in a little bit different way, or get particularly excited about one that somebody who came out really liked. And I don't know, there's just, if we were just doing it, I mean, a lot of the appeal is doing it with our family, but that would get pretty old. It's nice to have other people too that are involved, and kind of more of an in and out basis.
Name a few of today's programs that you admire and why.
So the one that we bought the most bulls from would be Dickinson. Just over the years, I think we bought Capone in 2002. So it's been over 20 years we've bought cattle from them, and there are just so many options on what to buy, and they also make it easy in that they have pictures of the bull parents. If they have calves, they have pictures of that. And then we've bought a lot of bulls that they have used for several years, and so there's been a lot of marketing behind them. So that's part of the reason we buy from them. But we like their cattle, especially if we're looking to add more size back. They tend to have big body cattle. But the one that I'd say consistently seems to wow me with their cows and the consistency would be Bob Loomis. And he's just been breeding elite cattle for so long. And there's just something really consistent. And there are several others that I'm thinking of, but I just want to name one. So I'm going to just say him. But there's several others too their cattle are so consistent. So Bob Coffey owned a bull named Abraham early in our time raising Longhorns, and he had bought him from Bob Loomis. He had won the World Show. And then Bob Loomis has gone on to just have elite horned cattle, but they've maintained such a pretty body type. And so many people have bought bulls from him and continue to buy bulls from him. I mean, it shows how well he and his cattle are respected throughout the breed.
What's something that you think the Longhorn industry does really well, and what's one thing you would love to see improve or evolve in the future?
even though we don't go to a lot of events, I think they do a good job of having a lot of events. I mean, I think that's one of the main things is industry that would be kind of industry wide. I think when chatter is positive generally, and I think people are having a good time, enjoying raising Longhorns, feel more excited about buying and selling from each other. And sometimes things aren't as positive. So I think just as long when things stay positive, I mean, they're not always going to be, but as much as people can try not to get into controversies and stay positive, I think things will be at their best.
Well, can I ask you a few questions about Hired Hand Live and let everyone know you're on there a little bit for the sales?
Yeah, sounds good.
What's your strategy when it comes to internet bidding?
So for both internet and if I'm there in person, I try to identify the cattle that I'm interested in. If I'm looking on the internet, it's nice to be able to do a lot of research on their history, especially calving history. I try to avoid cattle that don't calve very frequently. And a lot of times, not always, but a lot of times you can get an idea of that on y'all's websites. But I come up with a list sometimes, depending on the sale. Sometimes it's long, sometimes it's short. And I just come up with a max bid on all of them, and then I try to stay at that. Usually I do a good job staying at it. I have gone over it before, but I guess it's kind of that simple. Identify ones I think would be a good fit for us, and then figuring out a price where it would make sense, and then try to stay there or under it.
Is there anything specific you look for when you are evaluating animals online that you know you might not see in person before you bid on them or purchase them? Besides,
calving history is one of the biggest things. There's a lot of benefit to seeing the cattle in person. Disposition is one of the biggest things. But cattle just look different sometimes in pictures than in person, and body size is another one. Maybe there's some conformational things that you can't see in the picture. So I like to see cattle in person, but if not, I like to look at calving history. It can be helpful to be familiar with some of the genetics of the cattle, and also be familiar with the seller, whether we know them or just have a feel for kind of what kind of cattle they like, and then also whether they tend to put cattle they like in sales or maybe cows they don't like. We don't necessarily know that. It's not going to be the same for every sale for every consignor, but usually I'll try to form some sort of thought about that. Like with John Marshall, when it was his sale, I felt like he was trying to put his best in. I feel more comfortable bidding when I feel like that's probably the case.
Are there any standouts you can remember that you've either bid on and lost or purchased through Hired Hand Live that kind of stand out in your mind over the years?
Sometimes I'll go to the sale and just bid through Hired Hand Live because in part it's easier to close out. So we bought Lollipop at the Horn Showcase. I think I might have bought, even though we were there and saw her, I'm wondering if we might have bought her through Hired Hand Live. I'm not sure. The ones that we bought from John Marshall that I really liked, I'm thinking we might have bought them on Hired Hand Live too. I mean, one nice thing, a lot of times that sale was Friday night and Saturday. A lot of times we go Friday night, we weren't sure if we'd be able to make it back on Saturday. And so we could bid on Hired Hand knowing we could close out even if we weren't there. I know for sure I did that at one of the Blue Ridge sales, and I'm thinking, I'm thinking the one where we bought 3 heifers and a young bull that we all were just so happy with, and several years later just it felt like such a good purchase still. I think we bought those through Hired Hand Live.
I think I remember a few times, like when Hired Hand Live was still fairly new and Jamie and I were still kind of like learning people's quirks and patterns. I remember, I think it was a Macomb sale. You were in the audience, and I think you were bidding online, but then we saw your dad's hand go up, and we were worried you guys were like bidding against each other. And I remember I had to come over and ask one of you, like, what's going on?
So
But I think I remember the Blue Ridge sale though too. Like we had to make sure, because we had seen you one day and then, the next day or whatever. So
yeah. And sometimes, I mean, this isn't usually a factor, but sometimes it's nice to be anonymous too. And that's not something I think about a lot, but I know some people feel that way so anyway, I mean, it's such a great service you'll provide.
thank you.
And it does so much. So one thought that I've had is between y'all providing the internet bidding and then the haulers like Wes Clark making transportation easy, it just opens up a whole group of buyers that wouldn't be there without that. So anyways, it's really been a good thing, I feel like, for everybody. Yeah.
Well, I just have a few more questions here as we kind of close out. If you were a new breeder or you were talking to a new breeder who were starting their program from scratch today, what advice would you give them beyond genetics?
So the biggest thing would be not overgrazing. That's just, it takes a lot of the fun out of it. It can have negative impact on the land, and your costs go way up. So if you overgraze, you're having to feed a lot of hay, your costs and your labor are just way up. So that's usually the biggest thing. And then aside from that, it would just depend, be asking questions about what they're trying to get out of it. When people just want to get some cattle to enjoy, and they want it to be, but you just need to find cattle that'll be kind of hassle-free for them and pretty and gentle. That's usually a lot easier because Longhorns are great for that. If it's somebody who's wanting to make a business out of it, there's just so much more that goes into that. And so usually in that situation, it would be more about kind of start off slower, talk to more people, see what people do, see what people who would have a similar scale and history to you do to make it a successful business, and take your time more. But if you're just doing it for enjoyment, which I think most people that own Longhorns are, maybe not most that have a website or attend the sales, but they need to be ones that you as a seller would enjoy being around, especially a lot of times if you didn't know anything about cows. But they can usually make a quicker purchase if people are trying to make a business out of it or compete in futurities and maybe horn measuring events. Then it probably is better to take a little more time.
So if you look back at your journey from high school to college to the MLB to building one of the most respected Longhorn herds in the country, what are you most proud of?
Although there's so many different things. I will say one thing that I put a lot of thought into, and I feel like is worked out well. I guess thought, time, and resources into is for us to be doing this full time. We need to maintain a large enough scale, not necessarily the largest scale we've had, but we need to have a larger scale. We had a lease property for a long time that changed hands a few years ago, and most of the land that we have a cattle on, we lease from longtime neighbors or family, or we own. And we felt several years ago like we needed to prepare to maybe lose this lease or give this lease out at some point. And I guess we started thinking about this 5 or 6 years ago, but we were able to make adjustments, a lot of which involved planting grass and farmland. But between buying land or leasing land, we were able to slowly adjust our herd to where now we could give up this property, which now it's getting developed. So we've chosen to give it up, but now we're able to still have, because we prepared for it, still have the scale. But I think we've shown just in different things, both in, I guess, me with baseball and Dad and I with our Longhorn herd, just shown a lot of resiliency. And as things come up, just continuing to make the best of situations. I felt with baseball, that was a big thing. I had some really good years, some really bad years. But I was able to play till I was 35, which is a fairly long time. And a lot of that was because when I would have bad years, I bounced back, at least eventually. And anyways, I feel like with agriculture, being resilient is so important because there's so much, you're always going to have tough times. So I think that in both those situations, that's something I was able to do, and that I would say I'm proud of it.
That's a great advice. People, I don't think often equate resiliency in agriculture. So that's huge.
Yeah, you gotta be so resilient. The day to day, it varies so much with the weather, with things breaking down. There's so much that's out of your control. So things are gonna go bad. And there are gonna be great days too. And it's just making the best of the ones that aren't as good.
Do you ever see yourself stepping away from ranching, or will you be walking your pastures for decades to come?
Definitely not at this point. I do not, and I don't think I ever will get away from having Longhorns. I thought at some point I might work in professional baseball. I've done a little bit of announcing. We have a AAA team here, and I've done color for them some on the radio, just to stay involved, and I enjoy doing it a little bit. It's possible I would do something part-time in baseball, and with us downsizing a little bit, I could have a little bit more time to do things. But at this point, it's just I enjoy it so much. I enjoy raising the Longhorns, taking care of the land, helping out our customers. Our kids are really getting into it. And it's always been such a part of my life, kind of throughout my life. So I have felt like I'll always do it. My thought is really one of our kids is going to want to do the Longhorns at some point. I mean, if they don't, that's fine. But I think that there's a high likelihood of that. So I'm planning on it being very much a long-term thing still. I have some variety too. So at some point I might do more than just the Longhorns. But I might not. I don't know.
When people think of Rocking O Longhorns years from now, what do you hope comes to mind?
One thing I feel like we try to be transparent with what we're offering people. I think that's something we feel like we should do and take pride in. And so I feel like that would be great if just people feel like they know what they're getting when they come and look at our cows or think about buying something from us.
Well, is there anything that I haven't asked you that you want to share with the listeners?
No, I don't think so. You asked a lot of good questions. But I do. I mean, I feel like the service y'all provide, especially for me with the online bidding, but also the websites for your customers is just been such a good service.
Thank you. Well, thanks for taking the time to join me today. I appreciate it.
Thank you.